All right, guys, now we're going to bring in Miami's own WPLG sports anchor, Clay Ferraro. Clay, welcome to the show.
Man, I'm so glad to be here to talk the X's and O's of girls' elementary school basketball. I cannot wait for. I've been looking forward to this all day, man.
Yes.
Yeah, listen, I got to give the people just a little backstory, man. Listen, my daughter and Clay's daughter, man, we just won an awesome championship for our school, and I think as long as everything works out, God willing, Clay and I are going to be coaching side by side next year as we try to deliver another one home for the school. But yeah, man, girls basketball is something that I've been really kind of grown to, and listen, Clay is. I guess you could say he's a very supportive parent, but he's also our videographer. Like this guy gives us every single clip. Like I get a chance to actually go back and like judge our girls on previous games because Clay's like sending clip after clip. So what a great father and supporter to have in the stands, man. So Clay, we definitely appreciate you hopping on.
Well, I appreciate you and appreciate all your work. I mean, as good as you were as a player and this media maven thing you're doing, man, you could pick up a job long term, full time doing basketball coaching, man. So we appreciate all you. But I know the people are actually here not to hear about our girls basketball team and talk
For
about
sure.
little playoff football.
Yeah.
Well, you are a Hokie. I did see that. And you're in Miami now. I think you got to Miami in 2014.
Yes, sir.
I'll let you run through and tell everybody what happened in between those years because it looks like either you were single or you had a very understanding girlfriend or wife because there was a couple moves along the way.
Yeah, man, you're not kidding. And she's been great. Well, we met actually in Fort Myers, and we're talking now, and it's 2023, so we met about 15 years ago. And thankfully, she is very understanding. She's also a teacher, works very, very hard. But once the job came open over here, it's such a great place to cover sports, and there are very few markets in this country where you can cover, man, pro football, basketball, hockey, baseball, plus D1 football, multiple schools, big time football. I mean, so yeah, I mean she's great. So, but yeah, I started in Idaho Falls before that. San Angelo, you kind of go wherever you have to for the job, but. Original start was I was at Virginia Tech when Michael Vick was there, and it was kind of cool to see how the school grew because of the football team, and that kind of like got my passion going more. It's like, man, so much can come from sports.
You bring up when you bring up Michael Vick, that takes us to a whole different era. Like I remember watching Mike Vick in high school and just the way he had college football, in a chokehold, man. Every single week you come in, you would see Vic highlights every single week. So it's just that definitely took me back right there. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Man, I'll tell you, we will never forget. We paid $5 for student season tickets, and so we could all sit together. And we had heard all this stuff in the off season about this freshman quarterback, this redshirt freshman that hey, he could have played last year, but his high school coach wanted Frank Bieber to redshirt. In the first game against JMU, the guy is like, he looks like Bo Jackson in Tecmo Bowl, like running around, and we're like, and then finally the last touchdown he scores. He does a full flip in the air. I'm sure you can YouTube it and find it. And now he landed awkwardly and actually hurt his ankle. But we're looking at each other like, who is this man? Like, where did he come from? And it's really, it revolutionized. And, you can go back and Randall Cunningham and guys like that obviously kind of started the dual threat thing. But just the level I think that Mike took it to was just, and to be there was really cool.
You guys want to feel old? That's back when Big East had football, right?
Oh, don't even get me going, man. Hey, I miss it. I'm not lying, man. Those were my Miami games and West Virginia Tech game. That was you'd have to duck from the liquor bottles that were getting thrown if you go to Morgantown. And it was crazy, dude. No joke.
Oh man, that's great. That's great.
Yep. Well, we are here to talk playoff football. Jermon, you want to jump in and break us in on the Dolphins Chiefs?
Yeah, man. Let's talk about it. Well, it's really what an exciting matchup, right? And then this is the homecoming that we should have had in the regular season, right? But they were across the pond, right? But now we get it here. We joked around the last show about the script writers. Well, now it's literally the perfect scenario. You got the Miami Dolphins who just can't find a way to get over that hump when you're talking about beating these really good football teams. And now your back's against the wall again. And you got to go into Kansas City. Now you got to play playoff pack, and it's going to be -5. And we talked about the wind chill being what, Meehan? What did we say?
The last report I saw is going to be dangerously in the -30 range.
Yeah, the Dolphins are 0-10 when it's 40 degrees and below. So you're talking about 70
Positive
degrees.
40.
Yeah, +40. Thank you for
Right.
clarifying that.
Right. So, I mean, you see a team that's played such exciting football all year. Clay, I mean, what do you think really going into this game? Do you feel good about the Dolphins? Do you think they can be competitive going into this game? Or do you feel like it's just really a not good, really not a great situation for them?
Well, I think they can absolutely be competitive. And I think when you go back, what I found was really interesting, guys, was when the initial line came out, I think it was Kansas City by 3 or 3.5. And then it
Yep,
was
it opened at 3.
Yeah, and then it was very quickly bet up, obviously. And last I checked, Kansas City was 4.5, 5. But what that tells me, and Ryan, you may be able to correct me if I'm wrong here, but doesn't Arrowhead typically get 3.5 to 4 points, like a little more than
Easily
so?
at a regular season game. Now you're talking about a playoff game. So, yeah, it was a little
Right.
fishy. It's a little fishy.
So I looked at it. I was like, man. So basically, what the odds makers are telling you, and I don't buy into the whole. Oh, they want you to bet this way. But no, they want 50% on each side. They want to make their money, and they do that with 50. So when I saw that, I was like, wow. The odds makers are saying that on a neutral field, Miami is actually either equal or a better team. And what I found going back and watching that first game was, man, the schemes and how Miami had Kansas City lined up in that game,
Yeah.
they seemed to feel pretty good about what they were doing. Now, with all of that said, man, that's a long time ago when you talk about
Yeah.
injuries and
Yeah.
what's happened with Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Andrew Van Ginkel. I mean, not you're talking about your top 3 edge guys, but
Yeah.
also really Van Ginkel would go back and forth, and he played a bit of the Mike a little, or inside linebacker as well.
Yeah.
So it's like you lost so much. Now, I do think they can be competitive. I think the game plan is going to have to be different than I think what we think of when we think of this Mike McDaniel explosive offense, and yet I honestly think that leaning more on the running game may be more beneficial to Tua, in addition to being beneficial to winning this game. So I absolutely think they have a chance. They've been very much of the man. It's got to be mind over matter thing. There's nothing you can do for 30 below. You just
Yeah.
have to go out there and play.
Yeah.
But I think if they go out there and they start leaning a bit on hopefully Mostert plays, but if not him, Achane and Wilson a little more up the middle, I absolutely think they can do this.
Yeah. It's funny because I was talking to Meehan and our producer a little earlier, and then I was telling him the coldest game I ever played in was a -18. That was Monday night. The Cowboys came up to Chicago, and like you said, to kind of allude back to what you were saying is it is truly a mindset. Like you can go out and be a football player and play in 10, 20 degrees. That's cold. Like it's chilly, right? It's cold. You're talking about below zero. Like you have to go out there with the right mindset. You got to go out there and understand. I'm gonna be out here 3 hours. It's going to be extremely cold. I'm probably going to be sick after the game. And what do we need to do? The ball's going to be like a brick.
Hmm.
So obviously, Tua doesn't have the best arm strength. What a really, accurate quarterback that he is. But the ball is going to be really hard. I don't know if they're going to really be able to air it out the way that you want them to. But definitely leaning on that run game is going to be key, especially because the Chiefs they give up 4.5. They gave up 4.5 yards a carry, and I think the best offense or the best way that the Dolphins can attack this game is by keeping Patrick Mahomes off the field, and you do that by running the ball and staying consistent with it. So I'm definitely in agreement with that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the yards per carry thing too, because I think a lot of times when you get into, unless you're in the advanced metrics world, it's all right. Well, how many yards per game do they give up? And I always look at, hey, and by the way, this is where I thought they kind of erred a little bit against Buffalo the other day. Was, man, you could find some traction in that running game, and I think in particular right now when look, we were out there today, Jalen Waddle, like my guess is he tries to play. but man, he's still affected big time.
Yeah.
And I mean, he naturally kind of walks with a little bit of a limp anyway, but
Yeah.
it was hard to watch today. So again, I think he'll play, and yet I don't think you can rely on him to be anywhere near him. This is a
Yeah.
high ankle. This is not
Yeah.
I turned my foot on the curb. No, this is tough. But I mean, maybe it forces them into exactly what you're talking about. The other thing that Mike McDaniel said today, which I thought was interesting, was they asked him about the mindset of why running games become so much more important with playoff football. And he said, look, it's a bunch of different things, but Jermon, you can probably speak to this, that late in the season, your blocking schemes, you have worked on it so much, you have repped it so much to where your run blocking may be the most complex thing that you do on offense.
Mm-hmm.
And so by the end of the season, you should have built up that chemistry by that point to where, man, you're not just talking about your initial assignment, but it's getting to that next level. And so I think in his mind, he said kind of what you said, we can go out there, run the ball, control the clock, but also we have the ball and you don't. And so as long as he follows that, and I'm hoping he does. I mean, that's one thing that McDaniel can tend to do a little bit that drives him out, so he gets away from it. But if he does that, I think they absolutely could do this.
Mike Tyson said everybody's got a plan to get punched in the mouth, right? So
That's right.
he has that plan, but is he going to stick to it?
Yeah,
Everybody's talking about the weather. I mean, Jermon mentioned it, 0-10, their last 10 under 40. 2 was 0-4 over that run. But nobody's really talking about, at least recently I haven't heard, Tua is 2-9 in road or neutral games versus winning teams. And the Dolphins themselves are 2-12 straight up their last 14 games as road underdogs. So hopefully they can stick to that plan, as you're saying. I was going to ask you what would be the perfect game plan for them to do, but you kind of mentioned, run the game. You mentioned McDaniel's got an idea to run the ball. So I guess
I shouldn't have stolen your question then. So I'll build on it. What I thought was interesting was, I don't know if you guys had a chance to read it, but I think there is, when you're watching Tua, sometimes you're thinking, okay, what is missing here? And I think going back to your point about what is his record against really good teams, and there was a really good article in The Ringer. And look, I know people try to assign reasons why things happen and whatever, but I thought it was a really good explanation of, in particular, when you go against good defenses, you can take away a team's fastball. You can take away what they do best. And throughout the course of games, and in particular, we saw it a couple of weeks ago with the Baltimore Ravens, where they know that Mike McDaniel and Tua love going back to that post route over and over again. So you saw Baltimore, which typically doesn't even play this kind of look, they basically had a safety just sitting there and daring them to throw that post route. The issue that I think Tua has, and this in particular comes up against really good defenses, is they know how to take away your first option. Once you get through the scripted plays, and the thing that I think you see with Tua sometimes is if it is predetermined, or if he can get it at the snap, you can't beat him. I mean, he is unbelievable. But when it starts to get to second, third read, and he has to just kind of hitch a little bit, it's not that he makes the wrong decision, it's that he makes the right decision too late, which quickly becomes the wrong decision.
Great point.
No, that's a great point. And the thing about this game, like a matchup that's interesting to me, is that Miami, which used to be who's really good on offense, plays a Kansas City Chiefs team that's been really good in their secondary. So it's like, what gives here? So I feel like that's two juggernauts right there. So on the other side of the ball, I feel like what's going to give here? Like, it's Kansas again. You really can't count out Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Andy Reid in the playoffs, and I just feel like going into this game, like, my heart is going with Miami. If I was betting with my wallet, if I'm picking on my wallet, I think I'm going to go Kansas City, just because they really got to beat the odds in this one. You understand? But like, my heart is saying, hey, I want Miami to win this game. But if I'm putting a couple dollars on it, I'm probably going to go with the red side. So
yeah, and I think, again, look, you hear this all the time. No excuses. Next man up. Injury, you got to get through. They don't say next men up. I mean, when you just look at the sheer ball, and I'm not making excuses here, Matt, but you're not just talking about I remember you guys, Jermon, when Drew Brees got hurt and Teddy Bridgewater stepped in
Yeah.
and was just fantastic. But I think like what's kind of lost in that, maybe that was a year before, but what's kind of lost in that was you still had Michael Thomas, you still had Alvin Kamara, you still had so many other guys. I think
And
the
you
issue
had a
with the
top 5 defense that
boom,
did not break at all, and
yes,
that's what that's what worries me going into this game is that you look on paper a month ago. This this Miami Dolphins defense is loaded, stacked. They're good on the edge. They're good in the middle. I mean, you got 2 of the best D tackles in the game right now. The linebacker position was a little iffy, but then you look at Javon Holland, Ramsey, Xavier. Half of those guys are gone.
yep,
Jerome Baker is gone. There is no real outside threat. Melvin Ingram, you know what I'm saying? So it's like
yep.
it's like every team goes through adversity with the injuries and things like that. I feel like it just hit them so late that I don't know if they can recover.
Well, Jamal, we were out there today, and Tua was joking around with them in the locker room. He's like, "Hey, these are the OGs," but it's Bruce Irvin and Justin Houston, and it's like,
Yeah.
man, hey, if this were 2015, man, we got a squad.
Right.
And now it's like, man, this is. And look, by the way, those guys look good.
Yeah.
I think they absolutely can go, but you just can't help when you look at what they lost with Chubb and Phillips and Van Ginkel. And look, I know, like, if you're in that locker room, you can't think like that. You've got to
Right.
be thinking, all right, we're going out there, we're going to find a way to get this done, next man up, all that. But I think it's fair from the outside to look at it and say, all right, there's a reason why Jalen Phillips, a lot of people had him as a preseason favorite for Defensive Player of the Year. There's a reason why halfway through the season, Bradley Chubb was working his way into that. Those guys are so impactful. And by the way, to your point with X being out, where I think they really struggle now is when Jalen Ramsey was out, X had to be your one. When Ramsey came back, and you could have X as a really good number 2, then man, it just opened up so many different things.
Yeah.
Tohu has struggled this season, and so I think it's difficult for them right now, where it's like, okay, if you've got Ramsey and X, then you can kind of mix and match other guys. With X out, you're asking a lot of guys to step up and take over that number 2 role who aren't as comfortable in that spot.
I usually like to take the contrarian, so I wanted to take the Dolphins so bad here. And like you said, Clay, it seemed like a fishy line when it first came out. But you made a great point where I also like to take the injured player factor, I call it. One player goes down and the other, a lot of the gamblers out there go the other way immediately. So I like to take that team because usually a team can rally around one guy being down. But like you said, it's next man up, not next man up. And there's too many injuries. There's the weather factor, which is getting worse and worse as the days go on. There's the playing against a winning team factor. There's another stat out there that these wild card games, the home team really doesn't have as much of an advantage as you think. Since 2015, they only cover the spread 43% of the time, the home team. But when you go to that Saturday game, so there's one day less of preparation, it goes to 58%.
Interesting.
So I think that gives them even more of an edge here. And like Jermon said, if I'm betting with my wallet, I think I'm going Chiefs or pass. It's got to be.
Yeah, and I will preface this by saying I used to joke that like I can't bet, I can't gamble because I'm so awful at it. And like when I say one thing, like so I just
self-awareness is key though.
It's just yeah.
Some people don't have that self-awareness and they just keep betting and betting.
Well, but tell me this: was there one number in particular with this game that jumped out to you? Because that's 45 to me, and the fact that neither one of these teams has been scoring very much lately, I was like, you're telling me this is going to be a 24-20 game?
So I will tell you this. In Germany, I had the under, and everyone you talked to before that game thought there was going to be a 70-point scored. I had the under, and the Chiefs, I think they went up 21-0 early, and I got a little nervous, but they didn't score again. Dolphins only scored 14. So last time they played, they only scored 35 points. I think people forget that as well.
Yeah. And that was with much, much better conditions. And normally, like when something like that happens, I get a little scared because it's like, oh, well, you might have a couple of defensive scores if a lot of offensive guys are whatever. I don't see that in this one. And I could be wrong. I mean, there was one in the previous game where Tyreek Hill like inexplicably lost it and it was returned. I just when I saw the number 44, I was like, I don't know if either of these teams are going to score 25 points, and that means the other team's going to have to score at least 20 to match it. But that was the one out of all the numbers that jumped out to me, which means, of course, they're going to combine for like 70, and it's going to be like this.
Well, like Jermon said, that ball's going to be like a rock, so it's going to be harder to intercept. It's going to be harder to pick up if it is a fumble, and then they got to run with it after that. So you might be safe with those defensive touchdowns.
Yeah, listen, -30 ain't no joke. I remember that -18 game. I'm out there at the game. It was a Monday night football game, so it's Chicago. It was 7:15 Chicago time. I got out on the field around 5:30. I was, being a tough guy, no sleeves.
Did you wear sleeves? I was going to say, did you wear sleeves?
No sleeves. Back then, the Chicago Bear offensive lineman, defensive lineman couldn't wear sleeves. So we just, I was out there hour and a half before the game, just psyching myself up, trying to get ready to go. And to be honest with you, listen, when that adrenaline starts going, it's cold, right? But like you got to suck it up for those times you're on the field, and then you like scurry on back to the bench and get in front of that heater, put that jacket on. So at the end of the day, bro, it's gonna be freezing. I mean, my pops was even sitting in the stands. He had icicles in his beard. He had a beer in his hand. It froze up on him, like the beer froze in his hand. Like, bro, it's gonna be crazy out there. But I'm excited. Like I said, my heart's going with the Dolphins. My wallet's going with the Chiefs. That's all I got on it, man.
It would be nice to see the Dolphins keep it competitive and maybe have a chance at the end.
Yeah, for sure.
When the weather's like that, the ball could slip and slide. You never know what's going to happen.
I think if they overcome this one, this right here.
Let's stick to this one first. Let's stick to this one first.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Well, and look. Yeah, well, and that's where I was going to go with this. Like, Jermon, you've been in a bunch of locker rooms, and you just want it for these guys. And I'm not saying this is like, oh, Homer, or like whatever. No, I can tell you quite honestly, there have been plenty of locker. I'm not just talking about football, but there are plenty of locker rooms that you walk into that you're like, oh, okay, all right, well, it's a time to go. But this is a good group of guys that has been through a lot of bleep. I mean, what they've had to go through. I mean, Tyreek Hill's freaking house burned a week ago. Like, what else can this team deal with in addition to all the brutal injuries? So, like, there's a part of me that looks at this and says, man, you go into Arrowhead, you get this done, and you exercise like all these demons, all this crap.
Yes.
It would be such a cool, like, not that you would be playing with house money after that because you never want to waste opportunities, but it would be kind of a cool way to cap all of the crap that they've had to go through these last few weeks. And yet I'm with you. Like, your heart is one way, but man, the brain is looking at playoff Pat and the success and Arrowhead and all that. And it is pretty daunting. And yeah, that's why we love sports. Anything can happen.
Throwing that out there, Clay. Throwing that out there, though, it's kind of like if they get that first punch in the mouth, if Kelsey breaks one and they score a touchdown, they might say, man, this has been a tough season. I'm ready to go to Cancun.
Yeah. and it's hard. It's like human nature, especially in 30 below.
Oh, yeah.
All that kind of plays into, you're just kind of like hoping that that's not what happens. But I'm with you. I hope it's close. I hope we don't have one of these games where it's like, here go the Dolphins again, because nobody on the outside actually knows what's been going on there.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we'll hope we'll all be sitting in the warm comfort of our own homes, probably watching with hope and excitement.
You're right.
Love it.
Nah, Clay, appreciate you coming on, man. This is a pleasure. We definitely can't wait to have you back.
Anytime, Bush and Me. This has been a blast. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Clay. Have a good one. That was perfect.
Good stuff, guys.